The Philadelphia Phillies absolutely had to give Kyle Schwarber the deal that he got. Find out why as we explore the other offers he received on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. Locked On Phillies is your #1 place for daily, Monday through Friday, Philadelphia Phillies content. If you don't know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space, well, I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic doing sports talk radio here in Philadelphia for over 6 years. Been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for the past 4 seasons. And this is now my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Of course, Kyle Schwarber made huge news around baseball yesterday, signing a 5-year, $150 million deal to return to Philadelphia. And some people were a little bit caught up on the money and the years. But looking at the other offers he reportedly received, you'll quickly see why the Phillies had to do what they did. We're going to break down the other reported offers. There's 3 of them as we start off today's episode. Later on in the episode, we're going to get into a big blow to a division rival that came out today. I told you Kyle Schwarber was the cornerstone for the entire Major League Baseball offseason. That's immediately been proven true. And the Mets just got weaker. Plus, Griff McGarry was selected in the Rule 5 draft and is now heading to the Washington Nationals. Why in the world did the Phillies not protect him? We'll talk about that as well. But let's start with the Kyle Schwarber information because that's still the biggest news in baseball from the past couple of days. He was the cornerstone of the offseason, and everybody around baseball was waiting to see what type of deal he would get to figure out where to set the market on other players. The Pete Alonso deal that happened today with him going to Baltimore is a really good indicator that Kyle Schwarber's deal was actually something pretty darn solid. Pete Alonso ended up getting $155 million on a 5-year deal. So he got $5 million more on the same exact length of contract. It's essentially the same deal as Kyle Schwarber with just a couple more million added on there, which to you and me, $5 million is a lot of change. But in Major League Baseball, that's a minor difference when it comes to those contracts. And something that's important, why am I bringing that up now? I said we were talking about Alonso later. Well, the #1 reported deal that I want to talk about with this Kyle Schwarber situation is that the Orioles offered him the exact same deal he signed with the Phillies, 5 years, $150 million. And if you think that was a bluff by the Baltimore Orioles, well, they went out and they gave essentially the same deal to Pete Alonso 1 day later. So the Phillies had to match that deal. If somebody else is going out there and saying, hey, we're going to give him this contract and you want to keep Kyle Schwarber, that's what you got to do. And it was not the Mets artificially inflating the price on Kyle Schwarber. If the Mets had gone out and done that, you could have at least thought, well, hey, they're a division rival. They're doing what the Braves did with Aaron Nola last year, where you just up the price by offering him something and hope the Phillies go above that, and you end up overpaying for a player based on what he's probably worth. That was not this situation at all. That report on the Orioles contract right there should immediately take away any criticism of the Phillies paying of Kyle Schwarber. If you're sitting here like, I wish it wasn't 5 years. Great, me too. I wish it wasn't $150 million. Great, me too. Like, sure, you want to get the best deal possible in every player. I would have liked Schwarber at 4 years, 120, 125, but that's not how it works. A shorter term contract leads to a higher dollar amount because the players put at more risk. So ultimately, that report in and of itself tells you that the Philadelphia Phillies got the best deal they possibly could for the market with Kyle Schwarber. So the Orioles themselves would have taken him away, and the Phillies couldn't let that happen. Think about where your mood is today. and where it would be if the same notification we got yesterday saying Kyle Schwarber to the Phillies was Kyle Schwarber to the Orioles. I'd be losing my mind to not have that guy with this organization for the next 5 years. And if you think the Phillies just overpaid, well, that is concrete proof that they did not. So that's the biggest determining factor in my evaluation of this contract based on where the market value was for Kyle Schwarber. If even one other suitor is willing to pay that price, that's the price. Now, let's look at a couple other offers because we knew that the Pirates had made an offer to Kyle Schwarber for 4 years and over $100 million. The true terms came out on that offer deal, and it was 4 years, $120 million. Just like I told you, that wasn't enough. Now, that's the contract that I wish the Phillies could have gotten Schwarber on, but clearly it wasn't in the competitive market of a 5-year, $150 million deal. Another year at the same AAV isn't like a crazy upsell. It's just a willingness to trust that Schwarber is going to be good for longer, and it's more commitment to the player. The Pirates were never truly in on this, and they, I think, just did that to be able to look their fans in the face and say, see, look, we tried. And they're getting laughed at around baseball because of that kind of fake offer. And it wasn't completely non-competitive. It's not like they offered him 4 years, $75 million or anything like that. But I told you from when that report came out, the Pirates were never truly in the market. And if I feel that way about that offer, well, if the Phillies had offered the same, I would have said the Phillies were never truly giving a competitive offer. And that would have been embarrassing considering what Kyle Schwarber did for this franchise, not just last year, but over the length of his first contract in Philadelphia. The one other reported deal, it doesn't mean these were the only three. These are just the only three true offers outside of the Phillies that we know about at this time was the Cincinnati Reds. And the Reds went to 5 years, but they completely lowballed Kyle Schwarber. They went 5 years in the $125 million range per reports. All of this from Ken Rosenthal, who covers Major League Baseball for The Athletic. And that's something that was why I didn't believe Cincinnati was ever going to steal Schwarber away, because they can't play with the big boys. Or rather, they refuse to play with the big boys. And there are Reds fans out there, I'm sure today, that are looking at that report saying, come on, man, seriously? We got a chance to bring this guy home and get one of the most impactful free agent signings in our recent franchise history, and you guys come in $25 million short like that. I told you $5 million is a negligible difference. 25 mil at the same length is totally a notable difference. So the Reds just didn't have the money to play in the market. There was no reported offer that I've seen so far from the New York Mets right now. So we'll see if that comes out and if there's something weird with that. But Schwarber didn't take a hometown discount or anything. It's not like the Phillies offered him less and he chose Philadelphia over other places, which is his right. That never really should have been the expectation. And I never put that out here on this podcast where it's like, oh, well, maybe Schwarber will cut the Phillies a deal. No, I said he wanted to be here. But in order for him to be here, the money's going to have to make sense. So ultimately, there is no way that you can fault the Philadelphia Phillies for giving him 5 years, $150 million. I can almost guarantee you that the way that this deal got done was Schwarber fielded offers from a bunch of teams. The Baltimore offer was the best that he got from outside of Philadelphia, and clearly it was, based on reports that we know right now. They said 5 years, 150. He got a hold of the Philadelphia Phillies and said 5 years, 150 is the going rate. If you match that, I'm a Philly for the next half decade. And Dave Dombrowski and John Middleton said, you know what? Works for us, big guy. Come on back home. So I think this is a great job by the Philadelphia Phillies front office. They didn't go a penny above market value. They made sure that the cornerstone of where their franchise is going right now in the immediacy is back and locked up. And the more I learn about this deal, the more I like it. Who gives a damn about Kyle Schwarber in 2030? That's something that it's a bridge we'll cross way down the line. There could be a salary cap in baseball at that time. There could have been an entire season lost to a lockout at that time. Who knows who's playing where for the Phillies and what teams are good and what teams are not. I mean, the only team I feel comfortable in saying will still be where they are right now is the Los Angeles Dodgers, because of course they will be. But the landscape of baseball is going to look totally different in 2030. And you don't let a NL MVP runner-up, a great locker room guy, an awesome power hitter, the best left-handed hitter on left-handed pitchers in the game today, walk out of your door for worry about 5 years down the line. So the reported contract should make you feel even better about where Kyle Schwarber signed with the Philadelphia Phillies. I think it's a smart move. I think it's what the Phils had to do. Now, Mets fans, they're in shambles today, because not only did Edwin Diaz yesterday go to the Los Angeles Dodgers on a deal that Steve Cohen absolutely could have paid for and chose not to, but they lost Pete Alonso to the Baltimore Orioles today. And we're not here just to laugh at Mets fans, though we will. It's huge to have a player like that out of the division and out of the league. We'll talk about what the Pete Alonso contract means for free agency for the Phillies and the NL East going forward as we continue today's episode. First, let's talk about FanDuel, though, because NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, the moment flips after a turnover. That's exactly what you're looking for when you're trying to live bet on the NFL. And this year has been so weird. Who had the Patriots and the Broncos as the top teams in the AFC? Who had 47-year-old Matt Stafford leading the Rams on an MVP caliber campaign in the NFC when ahead of the season it looked like his back was broken? Things change quickly. And if you don't have a feel on the games ahead of kickoff, that's why you wait to make your picks as you figure out what's going on in the game. Eagles fans will tell you halftime completely changes everything for the Eagles the way they play this year, and not for the better. At least make some money if your football team's going to make you mad. FanDuel's great, and they have a lot of great live bets you can make, from props to parlays to money line to spread to over-unders. All of that is available even as the game's going on. And FanDuel's interface to help you find all your favorite bets is sleek and fast, and the payouts are quick and easy. So you got to check out FanDuel. And they've got a lot of great stuff on other sports as well, not just football. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Something I want to do before we laugh at Mets fans. If you enjoy laughing at Mets fans, which we do when we can on this program, or you're a big Phillies fan and you want to hear the latest Phillies news, I'd love if you'd become part of our Everydayers Club. Join us on the YouTube. Join us in podcast form. We're available to watch and listen to on YouTube. I'd love if you could subscribe. Hitting that subscribe button is free and easy to do. It takes like 10 seconds. And all it's going to do is get you notifications when new episodes are posted, so you never miss any of our great Phillies content. But it also really helps us out. And if you're not watching and you're just listening in podcast form, I'm sure we were easy to find because we're available wherever you get your podcasts. But if you are listening in podcast form, I'd love if you can leave a rating and a review. That also helps us reach more Phillies fans. So thank you to everyone who checks out Locked On Phillies day in and day out. I really appreciate each and every one of you. And if you haven't checked us out, maybe you're listening or watching for the first time with all the big free agency news, we'd love if you joined us day in and day out. We're doing this regularly, getting you the Phillies content that you crave in this cold winter offseason. I just need this right now, okay? It feels like Philadelphia sports have been kind of collapsing lately, with the Eagles falling apart and the Sixers are up and down. The Flyers are actually having a nice little season. The Phillies getting bounced by the Dodgers. Sometimes it's just good to laugh at a division rival, a hated team. And my least favorite team in baseball, it's no surprise, is the New York Mets. So when I found out today that the Baltimore Orioles have gone out and signed Pete Alonso to a 5-year, $155 million deal, according to Jeff Passan, I just had to smile because that is a huge help to the other 4 teams in the National League East. Pete Alonso was kind of the heartbeat of that Mets team. I know they have Francisco Lindor, and he's the more proven major league player, and he was brought in out of Cleveland to be this clubhouse leader for them. I know they have Juan Soto, who is overall the best player on that baseball team. But Pete Alonso kind of always felt like the guy that the team went as he went. Not quite to a Schwarber level, because Schwarber's locker room influence is legendary around baseball. But Pete Alonso felt like the emotional leader of that team in his time in New York. And to let him walk has Mets fans in shambles. And they should be, because for 5 years, 155, for a player that is younger than Kyle Schwarber, that plays a position in the field, which Kyle Schwarber does not do, just a DH. Now, for my money, the best just DH in baseball. But Pete Alonso, you could argue his value would have been notably higher than Kyle Schwarber, and he essentially got the same contract. Could you imagine, right, if the Phillies let Schwarber walk for 155, and then you find out that Pete Alonso signs the same deal to go back to the Mets like 24 hours later? It would have been like, bro, John Middleton, how are you doing this? I know you have money too. You're one of the major market teams in baseball. They're willing to pay that for one of their stars, and you're not willing to pay it for one of your stars. It doesn't exactly inspire faith in the fan base. They're sitting there probably saying, man, does Steve Cohen know what he's doing? Does this team know what they're doing up here in New York? I was told I had such a rich owner, and he's not going to pay this for my guy. That would bother the hell out of them. I'm sure it is right now. That would have been essentially the reaction here in Philadelphia, I believe, if Kyle Schwarber didn't walk. A little bit different because Schwarber is older and does not play a fielding position right now, but that's still, I think, a fair comparison. And the other thing that this means is it's not just to compare it to Schwarber, but if you're a Marlins fan today, a Nationals fan today, a Braves fan today, you're excited about that news, just like we are here in Philadelphia. Because the Mets, even though they collapsed down the stretch, were a team that were really in the driver's seat for this division partway through the season in 2025. They knocked out the Phillies in 2024 and went to the NLCS. That's a team that's in a championship contention window with an owner who's supposedly willing to spend. They could be a major thorn in the side of the Philadelphia Phillies or the Atlanta Braves or anybody who's trying to win the National League East. And they just took a major step back. 2, really. If you think, wow, the Phillies running it back, oh, this is the worst case scenario. Look at what's happening in New York right now. You lose Edwin Diaz and Pete Alonso in a 24-hour period? My goodness, that would be a back-breaking development. That would be like if the Phillies lost Joan Duran and Kyle Schwarber in 24 hours. Just let him walk. Refuse to pay him with the richest owner in the sport. So maybe part of this perspective is it could always be worse. Part of this perspective is Kyle Schwarber's deal looks pretty darn sensible for the Philadelphia Phillies to give out. And the other part that is actually the most impactful to the bottom line of, can this team repeat again as division, well, I guess it'd be a three-peat now, as NL East champions in 2026. That path just got much easier. If you look around the NL East from this past year, Pete Alonso was undoubtedly a top 5 player in the division. And now he's not even in the National League anymore. So that is welcome news to the Philadelphia Phillies. The division continues to fall in their favor, as it has the past couple of seasons where things have really opened up for the Phillies. Not that they haven't deserved to win it, but they've also gotten a couple of good breaks. And this is another one. So we'll have to see what Atlanta does. We'll have to see what the Mets counter move is. We'll have to see what the Phillies continue to do because right now I don't know that they have a starting outfielder on this roster. But as we sit here on December 10th, 2025, I'll tell you that the division looks pretty darn open for the Philadelphia Phillies to go out there and take another title. Easy to say months before the season even starts, but that's how I'm feeling today, and that's a good place to be. But we have a perplexing move on somebody the Phillies let leave the organization. Griff McGarry was not added to the 40-man roster to protect him from the Rule 5 draft. I speculated as to whether or not he could be drafted in that Rule 5 draft, and today he was in division. So we'll talk about why the Phillies let him walk as we continue today's episode. Let's talk about game time first, though, because the World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. 32 years worth of time. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. You're not the only one who thinks the World Cup is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And that's why the Game Time app is clutch, because they're finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time. So you know, hey, these seats for this World Cup game, they just got lower than they've been. You got to pick them up then. You can get alerts when great seats open up, so you're the first to them, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands, and it makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You just go ahead and take a look at the app. They've got so many great features. You're going to see the full price you pay before you go to checkout. So it's not like, oh, it's a great deal, but I got hammered with all these fees. No, Game Time doesn't do that. In fact, they're so transparent, they'll give you your view from your seat before you even purchase the tickets. So you know exactly how you're going to watch, I don't know, Brazil's playing here in Philadelphia. So watch Neymar score his goal. France is playing here. Kylian Mbappe score a goal at Lincoln Financial Field. How special would that be? Game Time can help you be in the building for those moments. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets or every match, concert, or event you want to go to with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go with Game Time. So Griff McGarry is no longer a member of the Philadelphia Phillies, and the three-headed monster of prep right-handed pitchers is down to one lone survivor. Mick Abel traded to Minnesota as part of the Juan Duran move at the trade deadline this past year. Of course, Andrew Painter is still here, and Griff McGarry was selected by the Washington Nationals as the third overall pick in the Rule 5 draft. Now, if you're not familiar with what the Rule 5 draft is, it's a selection of minor league players who are not on a team's 40-man roster. Other teams can just basically steal those players away. The catch is, if a player is selected in the Rule 5 draft, they have to immediately be placed on the 40-man roster for the team they're selected by. So you're taking up a very valuable roster spot. That's why you can't take like a 19-year-old crazy potential prospect because, well, you got to immediately put them on the 40-man, and that restricts a spot for what you can use for your major league team. So there's some tricks to the trade there when it comes to who you can select. And you can also defer your pick. So there's no requirement for any team to select anyone because you don't have to be forced to take up a 40-man roster spot. The Phillies actually did make a selection, and we're going to talk about their selection on tomorrow's episode. So make sure you tune in tomorrow to find out about some potential bullpen help for the Philadelphia Phillies that they could really need coming out of their minor league system. But let's talk about Griff McGarry first. It's a weird set of circumstances. He just had his best year as a minor leaguer. He was named in 2025 the Philadelphia Phillies minor league pitcher of the year. He was the best pitcher, according to the Phillies themselves, in the entirety of their minor league organization. And the numbers will show you that. Pitched in 21 games in 2025, the 2-5 record, whatever, but he had a 3.44 ERA, 83 2/3 innings pitched. He struck out 124 guys, a 1.22 whip. The strikeout numbers were incredible. The whip number looks good. The ERA is sub-4. You can work with that. That shows potential. And McGarry has ridiculous stuff, especially compared to what his numbers are over the course of his minor league career, which in 103 games, he's pitched to a 4.14 ERA and a 1.34 whip. I mean, that just shows you he had a better year than what his average is. So is he trending in the right direction? Would appear so. Could the Phillies certainly use a shot in the arm of young pitching coming up through their minor league system? Absolutely. So why do they let him walk? There's a couple of reasons for this. So they didn't protect him on the 40-man. And I speculated that this could be a, hey, we don't think someone's going to select him. That's option number one. Or we don't care if someone selects him because we see a fatal flaw in his game. It's not like he got selected at, 28th overall in the Rule 5 draft. He was the third pick. So clearly he was a valuable player left off a 40-man roster. So that, to me, leads me to believe the Phillies couldn't have misevaluated the market for him by that much. They didn't think, we're going to get him through the Rule 5 draft and then he gets drafted at 3. They knew he was going to be gone. And that means it was option one. They found the fatal flaw. Now, what is that fatal flaw in Griff McGarry's game? By all reports, it's command. He has a great fastball, great slider. The strikeout stuff is obviously there. He's got an electric arm. But at age 26, he's still in the minors and spent most of this past year at Double-A. And the reason for that is just not enough consistent command of his pitches. Now, you're telling me you got a 26-year-old, command issues, live arm, but command issues that hasn't really made it past Double-A or hasn't spent a large chunk of a season past Double-A. It's tough to project that guy out to being like a plus major league pitcher. Really, once you hit the age of like 26, 27 in the minor leagues, you are looked at as a near leper in Major League Baseball circles. No one's looking to call up the 28-year-old prospect, the 29-year-old prospect. You're looking for guys to get to the majors at 22, 3, 4 to give yourself more time to develop them at the major league level and get more value out of having them in your organization. So age was definitely a factor here. And that just indicates that the Phillies have not given him opportunities. And the only thing that can really stem from is the lack of command that he showcased over the course of his major league career. Now, the Nationals selected him. So why would another team want Griff McGarry if there's such a fatal flaw? Well, there's a couple of things. A lot of times in sports, when you see someone pick up a player that another team has given up on, it's done in some part out of hubris. You believe that you can fix them. Hey, that organization couldn't figure it out, but I trust my minor league development to make this happen. The Washington Nationals minor league development, pretty darn solid. Now, do they pay their players? No. Do they trade some of their players away? Yes. Do they build their franchise the correct way at the major league level? I don't believe so. But you can't argue that they haven't had talent. They just don't keep talent or manage talent well. But they sure as heck can develop it. Maybe they look at Griff McGarry and say, hey, we'll take our chance on a guy with a ridiculous arm that has command issues and see if we can find a diamond in the rough there. A former top draft pick, a guy that had at some points in his career been compared to Andrew Painter and Mick Abel, one who was traded for an all-MLB closer, one who has been the Phillies' top pitching prospect in their minor league organization for a while now. So the fact that he was at any point compared to him says, hey, someone somewhere at some time believed this dude was a stud. And they're more willing to take that chance because they haven't gone through the everyday grind of like, he's not getting it done here. He's not getting it done there. He's new to them. It's like buying a used car. The person who's trying to sell the used car is like, this thing's a hunk of junk. The teenager who's never had a car before, who's looking for their parents to buy them their first car, and it's a used one that someone else doesn't want, has never been more ecstatic to get that car. Does it run well? Well, we'll see. But that's essentially the Griff McGarry situation to me. Perplexing that the Phillies saw their best minor league pitcher according to the award they gave out and said, nah, we're not keeping him. But I think the age and consistent command issues are the determining factors as to why they were willing to let him walk. Could they get burned on this? Absolutely. But I'm just telling you why they did what they did, and he will certainly be a player that we'll be watching as he moves up through the Nationals ranks. Heck, the Phillies could even face him this coming season because he'll be on the 40-man. Maybe the Nationals give him his major league shot. We'll be watching, pulling for Griff McGarry, part of the organization, good kid by all accounts, but no longer a Philly, and those are the reasons why. On tomorrow's episode, we're going to talk about who the Phillies selected in the Rule 5 draft. They don't normally make selections. So why did they this time around? And what does it point to as far as needs for the franchise? We're also going to talk about how Major League Baseball offseason free agency has incredibly opened up since Kyle Schwarber signed. What are the other big points in news point to for what the Phillies are going to do next? But that's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out. And I'll talk to you tomorrow on our next episode of Locked On Phillies.